What does gutsy mean to you?
Being scared and doing it anyway.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm Laura Ora, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. Shame is one of the most powerful yet quiet forces that can hold us back from truly owning who we are and going after what we really want. It's sneaky. It peeks in through past experiences, societal expectations, and those self-imposed beliefs that keep popping up. And it's keeping us small, stuck, and second-guessing ourselves. But here's the truth. Shame does not have to define you, and it absolutely is possible to find it and release it. Today, I'm joined with licensed therapist Allison Guilbault to dive into how shame shows up in your life and how you can recognize its grip and, most importantly, how to let go of it so you can step into your next level of confidence with empowerment. If you've ever felt weighed down by guilt, self-doubt, or fear of judgment, then this episode is absolutely for you. A little more about Allison, though. She's a highly esteemed licensed therapist, international speaker, and mindset and transformation coach. She's the owner and operator of Mindful Mental Health, an online practice offering therapy for individuals. She helps her clients let go of shame and limiting beliefs, reconnect to their confidence, and reclaim their empowerment to tap into their highest purpose. Now, one thing that you're going to hear Allison and I chat about today is the power of community, having people to go to turn to talk to feel free and open enough to express your vulnerability. And one of the reoccurring pieces of feedback that I get from the Gutsy Collective members is that, my gosh, I finally have a space where I can really be myself, where I can ask the questions that I didn't have anybody else to turn to. And I get real practical advice, real support. There's no judgment. In fact, I get to see myself through the stories of other women. This is so powerful and is a huge part of the shifts, the personal and career shifts that these women are making. Because it lets you let your hair down. It lets you to be seen. It lets you to let out those thoughts and feelings that are bottling up inside of you. In the Gutsy Collective, we don't want you to put on a fancy front. In fact, we want you to bring your messiness, bring your big ideas, bring your worries and concerns. Because I guarantee you there is someone else in the group that is going through the exact same thing. So if you're wanting to make a change in your life and you are looking for people to do it alongside, go to lauraora.com and sign up to become a member of the Gutsy Collective. All right, my friend, today we're talking about shame. It's a really heavy topic, but this conversation is so refreshing and so lighthearted. So let's get into it. Hey, Allison, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Today we're talking about a super fun topic, shame. Everyone's just like, I can't wait. Let me get the popcorn. But, in all seriousness, it's something that, a lot of people, but particularly women, face and
Yeah,
experience and don't know what it is or how to identify it. And once you identify it, how do we move through it? And so I just thought that we could just kind of go down this path today of identifying and releasing that shame so we can move on with our lives.
I love it. It's one of my favorite conversations to have.
Amazing. I've got to know, do you have a personal story or what has been your journey with shame and getting to this place where you are in your life and career?
Yeah, so my background's in mental health. And so I spent a lot of time, with my education and in my professional life, learning so much about like anxiety, mental health, how to feel better. And all that's super valuable, right? I don't want to discredit any of that. But I realized like a major part of a conversation about confidence, about stepping into our legacy, about reducing trauma, about responding to trauma, reducing anxiety, so much of it is encapsulated in shame. And when I was starting to reflect on my own life, a lot of the places where I felt stuck, right, actually were subtly related to shame. And that was not at all obvious. So like two prominent examples that come up for me is like one was I found pretty quick corporate success in my early 20s. I had a really big girl job and a fancy salary and a fancy title, and I absolutely loathed it. Right? My boss was really terrible to me. He made me feel awful about myself. He was a mean man. And the idea of telling someone how unhappy I was, right, felt like, for lack of a better word, shameful. I felt really embarrassed by it. I felt like maybe it was me. And that energy really kept me stuck, right? So a lot of times when we talk about shame, we think about it in like, I did something embarrassing. And it can be that, right? But it's not, it can look like all different faces. And so like for me, that was one of the things. Like I climbed this whole corporate ladder, I invested so much time, and here I am. I hate my life. I'm actually quite miserable, and I don't know where to go, and I don't know how to talk about it because I feel embarrassed and shameful. And then the other example that comes up was much more recently. So I quit drinking. And that has been an enormous wellness decision for my life, for my mental health, for my mindfulness, all that stuff. Fortunately for me, I don't suffer from addiction, but I just was not living my best life as a drinker. And I had a lot of shame around it, right? Like I would tell people and they'd be like, "Well, you don't have a drinking problem." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, you're right. I'm not addicted." But then I would go home and internally I would be embarrassed if I repeated myself, right? I was waking up with like very low motivation. I was making promises to myself. I'm only gonna have two drinks. I'm only gonna drink on weekends. And then like, but I might have a third and oops, it's a Thursday. And again, I felt very, very shameful. I didn't know how to talk about it. I felt like something was wrong with me. And a lot of that has been a catalyst for now such a huge part of the public speaking that I do, the work that I do at clients is on like, what's in your closet, right? Like, if there's something that's hanging in there, it's probably the thing that needs a lot of attention. And shame wants to keep secrets in the closet, right? It doesn't want to bring it out. It doesn't want to talk about it. And so we can't release it, right? Because it's just kind of marinating in there. So yeah, that's that's where I started.
Well, so relevant. And I love this angle, to your point. Yes, sometimes it can be like, I did something and I don't want people to see or know or hear or feel about this. But especially in your examples, like that whole chasing the corporate dream, right? Like doing all the right things, I should be happy,
Mhm.
getting to the top and being like, I fucking hate this. Like
Hmm.
I think that's so relevant. And the drinking thing, gosh, I did that recently as well. Probably I guess it's been like 2 years now. I stopped drinking. It wasn't a conscious decision. My body just started to reject it. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm just not drinking anymore. But much like you, it's like, gosh, I would just through COVID. Okay. Listen, I got very
Same.
familiar. I got very familiar with the bottle, and I know many of us have, and did. And I would say things that I would feel embarrassed about later, and my body was just feeling like a bag of assholes, and it just wasn't a great thing. My body did the work for me, honestly, which I'm kind of grateful for. I just couldn't, literally, I cannot drink. My body
Yeah.
just will not do it. But I don't know, it's just kind of in those little, like, not that those are little, but just in those kind of quieter moments with yourself where you're like, I don't know, but should I just keep dealing with this? Or maybe it's not that big of a deal, where shame really shows its colors.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
It's a sneaky thing. And I think that, sometimes there's a lot of different definitions. So maybe you can help us kind of understand, like, what is shame?
Yeah.
Can we give it a shape, a form, a texture so we know what we're kind of working with here?
It's funny. I had a client literally just ask me this week, and I was like, "Oh my God, I do all this work at shame, and I don't have like a quick knee-jerk response." For me, right, the way that I sort of acknowledge shame is it is a very heavy feeling of secrecy and embarrassment. It's like take embarrassment, but just like darken it and deepen it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like, oops, I did this little thing and I wish I didn't want people to know. It's like we feel less than because of it, right? So it's like deeply tied. It's not just an event. It's not just like, oh, oops, I drank too much, or oops, I said something stupid, or oops, I made a play at someone that I later rejected me. It's like it's tied to that, and now I'm not valuable. Now I'm a piece of shit, right? And so like that's the part that really like anchor, like it pulls us down because it becomes more about an identity. right? Like, I am not a good enough person. I am not valuable. I should hide, right? Um, and when I said all of that to my client, he was like, well, that was not a Cliff Notes version. It's like, I know, I like the quick sentence. But I don't want to oversimplify it, right? Um, so maybe after this, I'll like do a quick like chat GBT slash Google. I'll be like, what is the official definition? But that's how I would describe it, right? Something like a really powerful, deep, dark force inside of us that's making us feel pretty terrible about ourselves.
Yeah, no, well, I think that's the relatable. I mean, there's probably, I'm certain there's a formal definition, but that puts it into like human context, right? Like I'm always a big fan of like how can I understand this or how can people understand this in the way that they're experiencing it?
Yeah.
And that like deep, take feeling bad and then like knock it down 10 rungs.
Yep.
And when you're kind of in that dark place, when you want to hide, right? When you just want to like disappear, or I think of that meme where Homer Simpson
Mm.
like backs into the bushes, like it's that kind of feeling, and it can come
Yeah.
from all different kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
How can you, I think that's relevant right now to hear, but kind of when you're in the moment, I don't know that we can always recognize that though. So like what does it look and feel like to experience shame? Like how can someone know when they're working with that?
Yeah, so something that I've been playing with quite significantly is what's called somatic psychology, and it's basically just the essence of we feel different things inside of our body actually in different places. So like, what does it feel like? It feels like a cop-out answer that I'm about to give you, but honestly, it's your own personal brand. For me, which is a common experience. I I like if I actually like did a body scan and checked into my body in those moments when I'm like really feeling shameful, my shoulders are really like my body's all crunchy. I feel really heavy in my heart. It's difficult to breathe, right? Like, when we say something like, "Oh God, like my chest is just so tight." It's like actually we feel that, right? Like that can be a real body sensation. So you're not like loose and fluid and open and receptive. It's like it's very constrictive. Um, People have experienced getting really bad headaches, right? It can be more chronic. Like, stress really does manifest itself in our body. A personal soapbox that I have and professional soapbox is like our mind and our body are one intricate system. The idea that we have like mental health, physical health, it's BS. Like our body does not know the difference. So if we're experiencing like chronic shame, right? And we're just beating ourselves up, it's going to take a toll, right? We're going to be more lethargic. We're going to feel less motivated. We might feel more depressed. We might feel more anxious. So I don't know that it's like this quick, like if then, like, oh, if you feel shameful, if they're experiencing a bunch of shame, look for this one sign and that's your telltale. It's unfortunately, it's way more personal and deeper than that. Um, but I think your visual of Homer Simpson is actually really, really powerful, right? It's like if you're constantly feeling that pull to retreat, right? And you're ruminating and you're thinking like, but why did I do that? But why did I do that? But why did I do that? I can't show up. I can't be in the room. No one's gonna like me, right? That pull away from humans is usually a pretty good telltale sign that like we're in a shame spiral, right? And I like the spiral because it we keep falling down into the hole, right?
And it's a slippery slope,
Totally.
our body remembers how we
Hmm.
responded and reacted to it the last time, and so
Hmm.
we develop these coping mechanisms, and we learn how to shut things down and shut people out really quickly because we go in protective mode,
Absolutely.
right? Like that,
Yeah.
ultimately we don't want people to know,
Hmm.
there's something about us that we don't want to be vulnerable with,
Yeah.
and so we put up the shield and carry the weight, and then we stop doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm such a brain science nerd. Like I love the brain stuff. But when we go into, everybody knows sort of like fight, flight, fight or flight, fawn. Um, but when we're in a state of defensiveness, like our bodies are not great at discerning the difference between a threat and a perceived threat, right? So, they always love to say like a saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, right? Like our primal response. You're going to go into protected stance, right? Mentally, physically, all of that stuff. You start to shut down. Unfortunately, our thoughts can create that for us, right? Like once the fire alarm goes off, it's off. It's not like, is that someone chasing me with a knife? Or is it just I'm feeling very shameful that I feel like I didn't perform well in bed, right? Our bodies actually can have a very similar response, right? We shut down, we withdraw, again, get all those physical symptoms. So we want to bring some awareness to it, and we want to be able to start to like pull ourselves out of it.
Well, that's segued right into my next question, which is how do we start to build awareness around it? How do we start to recognize and move through that so that we're not, backing into the bush all the time?
Yeah. So, Shane loves to live in the dark, right? And this is me being biased because I'm a therapist. And I want to say very, very importantly, I don't think therapy is the only place in space that this can happen, but we have to bring things to light. And I'm going to give you an example. I was talking to someone just this week, and they were not a client, someone in my personal life, and they were talking about how they have gotten themselves into like a hoarding situation. It started really innocently, and now every time they enter their household, they're just absolutely mortified and immobilized by shame. And they were talking to a friend, and they're like, just clean up the house. And it's like, but you don't understand. When I walk in, the feeling is so big, and the self-loathing is so big, right? I don't know how to just start to throw things away. And you have to get through that step before you can get to the action step. So, in whatever way feels comfortable for someone, I want people to start talking about it, right? And if like speaking to another person is too much of a jump at the start, at least bring it to light in yourself, right? And that's where like journals, look in the mirror, but like give it some light, right? Give it some airtime. It's a cheesy Instagrammable post, but it's like, you know, you you, you got to feel it to heal it, right? It's like we have to speak things out into the world, and then that kind of takes away its power, right? Like we're bringing it out. We can look at it. We can do something about it. We can rewrite it. We can get support. We can shame, a lot of the times we think we're the only person that's experiencing that. I just did an article with a newspaper, and I do sex therapy on the side, and they were asking me the most common fantasies of someone. And so I was, rattling off some of the fantasies, a threesome being one of them. And it's like people have so much shame around what they fantasize about, and they have no idea that it's like 80% of people fantasize about that, right? But when you're in your own brain, you're like, oh God, this is depraved. I'm the only one. So it's just an example. And I think shame and sexuality and intimacy can go hand in hand, but it applies to anything, right? I'm the only person that's experienced hoarding. I'm the only person that can't seem to figure out drinking, right? I'm the only person that's climbed this corporate ladder and just hates it. So we want to just bust up the secrecy, build some connection, build some support, and learn coping skills around it and how to rewrite this narrative.
Yeah, that's powerful. I did a episode recently where I talked about, and this is really ridiculous, but it's a visual. It's not giving your thoughts and your feelings space to move is like farting in a box and expecting the smell to go away, right? Like
Love it.
if you want the smell, if you want the uncomfortableness to go away, you have to open up the lid. You've got to let it move. You've got to let the thoughts out. You've got to give it, like you said, airtime.
Mhm.
And I know that's really uncomfortable, but so is sitting with those thoughts all of the
Yeah.
time. Like that's perpetuating. That doesn't change. That only
Hmm.
grows. Whereas when you give it that space to move, like
Yeah.
I don't know, it just like almost instantly starts to diffuse it, or it simplifies it and it makes it feel not so huge. I think that's one of the big parts about shame is like it feels enormous. Not only is it dark, it is enormous in our bodies.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely. And uh, sorry that I keep using this example, but it was such a powerful one for me. When I quit drinking, I accidentally quit drinking, right? So I wanted to go to Bali, and I was Googling retreats in Bali, and I found this one, and it was for alcohol-free women only. And I was like, bummer, man, I'm not that. And so I actually met up with the head of it to just kind of feel her out, like 1 to 10, how sober do I need to be? And in my first discovery call, she's a coach, and when I was talking to her, I started like weeping, right? And I was like, oh my God, maybe I should look at my drinking. I am feeling a lot of anxiety. I am feeling a lot of shame. I am feeling a lot of remorse. And one of the things that she did with me was just help me build community, right? And so I started, part of the reason I started my Instagram account just a few years ago was to see other people who were on this journey. And that connection, that myth got busted in my brain that I'm the only one experiencing this, right? When other people were like, "Are you getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning?" and being like, "Damn it, I shouldn't have drank again," right? Like, yes, yes, I am, right? I'm not a hoarder. I don't know the empathy to that, but I would imagine if I'm putting myself in this person's shoes, if they find another person who's like, "Yeah, I get it. I've been there. That was really hard for me too." Like, there is power in validation when we see that we're not the only one with that lived experience. It's just so powerful.
Oh, you find relatability. You see yourself in other people's stories. You see people that are a few steps ahead of you that, they're showing you that it's possible. You're seeing some people that are a few steps behind you, and now you feel empowered to help them. I mean, it's that saying, rising tide lifts all ships applies,
Absolutely.
here and in many situations. And finding those people, I think sometimes is part of the battle. So where would you recommend, like, if someone's saying like, okay, I want to find community, I want to start talking about this, I want to move past this, what do I even do? How do I go about finding community and people to talk to about this?
What a great question. I mean, I think it probably depends on what you're looking for, right? So social media can absolutely be a tool. I say that with a giant asterisk, proceed with caution, right? Be extremely selective because social media can be beautiful. It can also be hellacious in so many
A
things.
train wreck.
Train wreck. But like there are support on there, right? There are people talking about like pretty much any brand of thing that you are going through. There's going to be someone out there talking about it, right? Um, but we live in a digital world where there really are access to tons of resources, right? So, if you are dealing with shame around purity culture, right? You grew up in this really religious area and you've been taught to believe like sex is really shameful. And you're like, ah, man, but I really want to have a sex. That sounds good to me. I want to figure out my sexuality. I want to have a sexual awakening. There are plenty of organizations, books, podcasts, right? Social media accounts, empowerment pages. Like there is for whatever you're experiencing, there somewhere on the web exists support. I'm also gonna, beat this horse. Therapy, right, is a really beautiful place. Now I know that's not always accessible to everyone, but there's sliding scales therapists, there's pro bono therapists. If you can find someone, especially if they specialize in what you're going through, right? They're gonna have not only I say to my sex clients, I'm like, listen, I've heard it all. You are not going to be the person that throws me off this chair. So, like, before we even start, I have yet to judge anyone for anything, right? As long as we're consenting adults, nothing you're going to say to me is going to rock the boat. And it's like just saying that, whether they decide in the first session to open up or it takes a little time to warm up and build rapport, right? They know that I'm not coming to a place from a place of judgment. So, find those people for you in whatever area you're going through, right?
Yeah, yeah. I Google Google.com, and you pop in there what you're going through, and
Yeah.
you can and will find something.
Yeah.
Facebook groups, right? There's
Yes.
a bajillion Facebook groups for different types of support and
Mm-hmm.
different topics, right? There's literally something for everybody. And I'll totally back you up on therapy, on such a valuable tool. If that is accessible to you and you have access. I know it can feel a little bit scary at first, especially if
Sure.
you've never done it, but it can also be extremely freeing as well. And just to
Mm-hmm.
have, you mentioned it earlier, validation. It's like, it's not that it's the permission that you don't need, but need to hear sometimes, and just feeling understood and feeling
Yeah.
heard. And I think that's a big part of balancing out shame is not only letting it move, but like, hey, someone else heard me. Okay, I'm not the only
Mm-hmm.
one that knows this now, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm not like containing this secret. Someone else heard me and they validated me. Like
Mm-hmm.
like they get it, and oh, I can move through this, and oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to, take me down every single day.
Absolutely. Yeah, and on a logistical point here, you know, I only take like I don't take insurance. I'm usually booked up, right? Like I at this stage in my career, more than a decade in, I'm not accessible to many, many people who are seeking therapy. With that said, every single person who will ever reach out to me requesting services, I am so happy to jump on a call with them and say like, okay, I can't be your right fit for scheduling, finances, insurance, not insurance, but let's figure it out, right? And I'll hear what they have to say and I'll say like, hey, here's this book I'd recommend, or here's this podcast I recommend. I don't think I'm the only therapist out in the world doing that, right? I think, pretty much if you've invested this much time in like the social work field, you are a person who wants to help people, right? So, and there's a lot of free messaging out there. I just had a client come to me this morning and say like, I can't afford your rates. And I was like, great, I'm offering a free workshop, right? I have a totally free workshop coming up. Here's my newsletter. I give tons of free resources. Here's 3 other newsletters that I think would totally align to what you're going through. So again, not even if you're like you get to the google.com and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to reach out to these people. Do it, right? Like do it. That is part of building community. We all are, what's the worst that happens? You don't get a response back, No farther behind than you were not reaching out.
I want to read you a quick testimonial from one of the members inside the Gutsy Collective. She said, listen, this group, the lessons, the accountability, the interaction, the vulnerability, all of it has been a critical part in me finally having a strong, productive, and purpose-driven week. The first that I've had in months. Look, this is not a rah-rah space where you're going to get empowerment one day and then it fizzles out the next. This is a membership that combines vulnerability, rawness, real conversations, backed with practical ways to move forward. And I say practical because we're not flipping tables over every day. In fact, the biggest life changes that you'll ever experience come from taking the micro steps forward. So if you feel like you've been spinning your wheels and you're doing it alone, why don't we change that? Let's get you some traction and get you around other women that love and support you. Become a member of the Gutsy Collective by clicking on the link in the show notes, or you can go to lauraora.com. Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say are some common misconceptions about shame that we could bust?
Again, that isolation, I think I don't know the statistic. I have never worked with a client in coaching or therapy that doesn't have some level of shame on something, right? So we're infallible as people, right? Like we fuck up all the time, and everyone's got something in their closet, right? So there's a really famous she does like self-compassion work. Her name is Dr. Kristen Neff. And she always talks about if you want to embrace self-compassion, which is sort of like the antidote to shame, start to know that you're not the only one, right? You're not the only one experiencing shame, not just a particular brand of shame, but shame at large. And sometimes that starts to melt away. So like myth number one, I would say is like everybody's got shameful something or other. Number two is it's not treatable, right? It is treatable, right? And I come from sort of a clinical background, so hence I'm using the term treatable, but like we can heal it. It does move. We do overcome it. It does not have to hold you back. And I think shame is tricky, right? It's a powerful force, and it's really gonna want to tell you, I ain't going anywhere, right? You go ahead. You think you're gonna take a step out of this closet and bring it to the light, you're gonna be even more embarrassed. And that's not true, right? It's just not true. If you hand your vulnerability to the right people, they're going to meet you there. They're going to hold your hand and they're going to help you move through it.
Yes, that's key. The right people.
Yeah. Yes.
You got to do a gut check on that, my friend. You got to
Yes.
do a gut check on that. Like if you're resisting and pulling away, like putting on your hand on a hot stove, your body is saying, this is not the right person. This is not the right group. This is not the right therapist, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you got to go through a couple rounds to get to the right people.
Yes.
But if you're feeling drawn to people, if you're feeling like maybe I want to share, maybe I'm feeling a little bit open, going back to what you said earlier about your body, listen to it. My
Mm-hmm.
gosh, it is so intuitive. It's forever guiding us. We just choose not to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, again, as much as I like therapy, I want to just echo, echo, echo. It's not the only place. As you just said, like notice your body and what is the right group. I always tell clients, vulnerability, we should treat our vulnerability like a little baby, right? Like not everybody gets to hold it. So, look at this person. I have a baby, right? I'm not handing it to like the guy at ShopRite, right? It's like, no, you are my trusted friend that I know is responsible. Here you go, touch the child. When we're dealing with something especially as vulnerable as shame, that's extra, extra important. Um, I have found a really safe space in the dance studio that I go to, right? It's like not a traditional, it doesn't just look like therapy, but I go to an all women's dance studio. It's pole dancing. And at the beginning and end of every single class, they do like one word check-ins and they have a little like monthly vibe, right? And, I rolled my eyes a little bit when I first started going there. And now it's changed my life. I have this beautiful community of women, that we sit in circle before and after movement. And almost every single time somebody cries, right? It's just sort of like a rite of passage and going to our dance class, right? And it's like, hey, you just needed to release that. And you're in a place and a space that's totally here to catch you because we're all going to take turns. It's not my turn today. It might be my turn tomorrow. And that's been life changing for me in that space, right? So it's like we can get a little creative, right? Maybe another myth here, is it looks a certain way. It's like we can get really creative in how and whom we start to release some of the stuff that's been stuck inside, right? There's plenty of places that there's opportunity.
And kind of like with your dance studio, I think sometimes it does come in the unexpected
Mm,
ways. Like I think sometimes we're searching for the perfect answer so much that we accidentally bypass the easiest stuff that's right in front of us.
mm, yes. Yeah, I got a good myth there. It doesn't have to be actually as hard as we think it is.
Ah, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, crying in a group of women. I know a lot of people are like, nope, not gonna
Yep.
happen. But man, you get in there and
Yeah.
your body starts to feel safe.
Yeah.
That shit just rolls.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it will come out of nowhere. And like you
Yes.
said, it can be life changing and simple. I mean, feeling big emotion is not easy, right? But the act of and doing it is relatively simple.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was in the class yesterday, there was a new member and she started sobbing at the end of the class and you could see she was like viscerally mortified, right? And she was saying it. She's like, this is so embarrassing. And, it's a small class and we were all having I promise this is just your turn. Come next week, so you'll see someone else. But as she was leaving, I walked out to our cars together and I was like, are you okay? And she's like, I didn't know I needed that. And I feel the purge. Like I feel lighter walking back into my car, right? And like that's the thing shame holds on us, that it's embarrassing to release, right? We don't want to be seen in that vulnerable moment and that discomfort. But then that's what keeps us in the container, right? I love your example. Like fart in the box, it's gonna stay stinky, right? You gotta open the lid. That woman completely unexpectedly opened her lid, right? And that is a really difficult thing to do,
It
right?
is.
It is. And it takes practice. I do a whole lecture series on how confidence is a skill. And I honestly think any healing is a skill. We think like it's meant for other people and it's just going to happen. And the truth is we have to practice it, right? I don't know. Just met that woman yesterday, right? I don't know. Maybe she's in her car overthinking it tonight, but maybe the second time she does it, it becomes a little less awkward or a little less mortifying, right? And then insert 2 years down the line, which is where I am at this studio. I have no problem. I most of the time don't cry. Sometimes I do, right? And I know it's a safe place to do it, and I don't have a second thought about it anymore. But that's been a journey, right? That didn't happen at day one, right?
Well,
Day
I
one,
think
I overthink it.
that's
Something.
the important piece to remember here is that this is a journey, right? Healing and moving through shame is not a quick fix. You can't hack your way through it. It's not something you can take the weekend and just plow through it. It's it's very much like an onion and it shows up
Mm,
in lots of different ways. And I think sometimes, and I'd be curious your perspective on this, sometimes you can feel like you've made a lot of progress and then all of a sudden you regress because I don't know, maybe you got in a triggered situation or maybe something happened or now you're just in a deeper level. What do you find in that situation when like it feels like the wound is cracked back open?
yeah, expect that, right? So we don't like healing is not linear, right? That's a cliche for a reason. We do absolutely take steps back, and that is fundamentally part of the process. No one just keeps moving forward. I can boldly say that it took me 5 years to quit drinking, and if I'm totally honest, that's not completely accurate because 6 months ago I went out with a friend and I had the fuck it moment and I had some margaritas, right? And I woke up the next day and I was like, I mean, nothing terrible happened, but this is also why I don't drink. I don't feel like my best life. I don't feel like going to the gym today. Right? I had that moment. if I had brought in shame into that experience, what would have happened, right? I can't believe I did this. I have a social media platform where I regularly talk about how the benefits of being alcohol free. I'm so embarrassed. What would that have done, right? It would have just churned self-loathing, self-abandonment, distrust in myself. Instead, I just looked at it and I was like, all right, I can focus on the one day I did drink in the last 2.5 years since I've completely like committed to not drinking. And I can look at what, that's like 700 days I didn't drink, right? I'll just recommit, just show back up today, right? I needed a little reminder. Like we are going to get triggered. We can't prepare for every single situation and test that we're going to be given. It's just like, the proverbial like get back on the horse. Right? It's just we move again. Life continues again. Start over. It's okay. We learned something. We learned something in those moments.
And, the further along you get in your journey, I think sometimes the easier it does get to come back and bounce back because
Sure.
you've built new experiences and you've got a track record now and you've got new tools in your toolkit. So it gets a little bit easier, but it doesn't mean that that it's not going to rock your world for a hot second, but you can see it for what it is instead of making it mean something about you like you might
Yes.
have done in the past. And that's, I think, in those moments, for me anyway, that's when I can really tell, like, oh, the fucking healing's working. It's actually working because the thing that would have set me back 3 days now made me irritated for an hour, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm good. Now I'm moving
Yes.
on. And
Yeah.
that's, I don't know, that's just always been a personal validation for me.
Absolutely. I had a lot of anxiety as a kid, and I was always like going to my mom, being, "Do you hate me?" Right? It's like, no wonder I'm a therapist. And like, why would my mom hate me? She was like a very loving mother, but she would when she was angry at me, and she would always say, "I don't, of course, would never hate you. I just hate what you did." Right? And it's okay. Just we're gonna work on not doing it again. And I've adopted that as sort of some of my self-compassion language that does help against the shame. Right? It's like I'm not a failure. I just didn't show up the way that I was hoping to this situation, right? Like what you said, like don't internalize. It's not a personality identity statement when we have these little fuck ups, have these little fallbacks, right? It's like, okay, I hit a bump and now I can move forward, right? And that's growth, right? That's what it looks like.
And it feels pretty awesome too.
Feels amazing.
We've talked about a couple of different like techniques and tactics. I'd love to kind of button it up and see what you
Mm,
recommend. Like, what are something like we talked about talking to people, which is phenomenal. We talked about recognizing your body,
yeah.
being vulnerable with your body. What are some other things that people can do in the moment when shame is popping up so we can release it?
Yeah, two things that I always like to encourage clients to do and people out there. One, which I don't know necessarily how accessible it is in the exact moment, but it's a very good tool overall. Um, most of the shame most of the narratives that are powering our shame are actually our origin story of that is from someone else, right? It's not actually our authentic thoughts, right? I should be farther along in my career. Giving up means I'm a failure, right? Starting over means I'm being irresponsible. I shouldn't like what I like sexually. That's, not pure. I should have a cleaner house, right? It's like these messages are outside of us. And so we can kind of assign them a little bit, right? Like, actually, I really hear my mom talking there, right? What do I think? Okay, well, actually, I do value cleaning my house. Okay, but you're not a failure if you didn't clean your house. That's just what my mom used to say when she was like kicking around the broom and being like, clean up your house or you're a dirty little boy. Whatever, you get my point. These are not great examples. I haven't had enough coffee today. But I do this with clients. I'll be like, where did you hear this story? Who's talking in this story? What do we believe now? And maybe how can we say it kinder? Right? Is that motivating to you? Right? You're a piece of garbage that your house is dirty. Is that motivating? No, of course not. So what would be motivating, right? So just, that's like the essence of CBT, our cognitive, our thoughts dictate our behaviors, which dictate our thoughts dictate our emotions, which dictate our behaviors. So just kind of looking at all of that. If I can change my thought, I can change how I feel about this, which means I can change how I behave about this. Right. So that's one, probably a lot more to unpack there. Um, Two, in the moment, self-compassion, self-compassion, self-compassion. Everyone hates when I say this. It seems like such an oversimplification, right? But breathing and saying something kind to yourself will absolutely shift the energy, right? So I will tell clients, stop, like literally effing stop, right? Take a deep breath, right? Because we want to calm that nervous system. So like most of the time when we're in a stressful situation, our shoulders are up, our bodies are back, right? Like constriction, open up, right? Like shake it out. Let's just like get a little loosey-goosey and then just say something nice to yourself, right? We want to get into the practice of not letting that shame spiral, right? Because it does, it picks up speed. It's like a big snowball coming down a mountain. So it's like suddenly we just have one little thought and then we're like in a pit of self-deprecation, right? And it's like, we don't want that. Stop, intercept, say something nice. You might have to keep doing it, right? It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I drank again. I'm such a failure. I abandoned myself again. Stop. No, I'm doing the best I can right now, right? Yeah, I know. I am doing the best I can, right? Stop, breathe. I've learned so much. Look how far I've come, right? And if we can continue to practice doing that, it actually slows down the thoughts and they're much easier to sort of kind of challenge over time. They get easier and easier. I promise they really do.
I can totally hear somebody being like, oh my gosh, seriously, self compassion. That's what
I
we got
know.
to do.
I know. I know. I wish there was a better, but
But
it is easy, right?
that's the thing. I always say, let it be easy.
Yeah, that's
Let it
it.
be easy. And it's
Yeah.
like, we want to make this way bigger and way more complicated and way more
Hmm.
elongated than it needs to be when, like, you have that tool at
Yeah,
your disposal 24
all the
hours a
time.
day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
It costs you nothing. You
Mm.
have to go nowhere. But this can help break the cycle. And I think that that's what this leans into is like, you got to interject.
Yeah.
You got to catch that shame before the snowball punches you in the face.
Exactly that. And I always think like, okay, if you were around, you're a kid and you're at the schoolyard and you see someone being beaten up, what would you do in that moment? You would you'd intercept and you'd help you'd extend a hand, right? You'd be kind. You'd tell the bully to stop. It's like that's what we're doing to ourselves in those shameful moments, right? We're in the schoolyard in our brain just like duking out to ourselves and we need someone to like kind of come in and break up the fight, right? And it's
Yeah,
like it is actually that simple, right?
it
And
is.
it's repeated, when clients roll their eyes at me, I'm like, look at I'm not creating the wheel here, right? Look at everyone everywhere and what they're saying, right? Spiritual leaders, therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, right? Like meditation gurus, yogis, right? It's like, what do we all say? It's like, take a deep breath, get that nervous system regulated, and then just be lighter, right? Shift the thought. It's like we're all saying the same thing, it's just under different brands. So, like, let's listen. That's the answer. It doesn't have to be that hard.
You just got to be willing to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Lastly, here, moving forward, building confidence, right?
Mhm.
Starting to rebuild yourself from the inside out as you're moving through this. What are some ways that we can start to just like build ourselves back up beyond that great talk that we're going to do to ourselves, give ourselves?
Yeah, so I always tell clients that we need to build confidence in steps and go for the lowest hanging fruit, right? A lot of the times where we feel insecure is we set the bar really high, and then when we don't meet it, we think we're the failure, right? So, like, it's January 1st, and what does everybody in America do? It's like they join a gym, right? They all recommit to their workout. Well, if you haven't been working out and then suddenly you're like, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, it's actually not that realistic, right? It's why most people ends up not showing up in February. It's like, don't say you're going to go 5 days a week. I tell my clients, lowest hanging fruit, put on your gym shoes, right? Like make it so low that you're definitely going to do it because what happens then is we actually build momentum, right? And when I say that to people, they again kind of roll their eyes and they're like, isn't that's too low? I'm setting the bar too low. But that's not actually how our brain works, right? When we start to be like, oh, I put on the gym shoes. I mean, I may as well get in the car. Okay, now that I'm in the car, I'm at the gym. Well, now I'm at the gym. I'll just do 5 minutes. And maybe the gym shoes was too low. Start it. I'll just have to show up to the gym, right? Once you're there, you're going to surprise yourself. And then there's no measure of failure, right? It's like, well, I did 10 minutes. That feels great. Tomorrow I'm going to do 15. So, with the way our neural pathways work, in our brain, the more that we practice something, the more accessible it becomes. So just I can do it versus this is too hard, right? Starts to change the shape of our lives. Something I tell the world is it sounds a bit bananas, but the fact that I'm a successful person. Okay. I have a podcast, I'm writing a book, I'm full and my all of the things that I wanted to do, I am nailing. I believe it started with quitting drinking, and I don't mean that because of alcohol. I mean it's the first time that I actually started shifting my mindset and believing in myself again. I was
Yeah.
like, I can do this. I can do this. And then at the end of that, I was like, I quit drinking and my husband owns 2 bars. If I can do that, I can do a podcast. And then I got the podcast and I'm like, I can start a coaching business. Right. So your brand is going to look different, but start for the things that feel easy for you to obtain. And when you start to feel good in your heart about that stuff, go a little bit further and a little bit further. And I promise it actually doesn't take very long. Right. It's like you're going to build momentum and be like, holy, I started that Etsy shop I never thought I would do. I went to the gym, whatever it is, whatever your thing is.
I know so many women are like, I want to do the bigger thing, right? Like doing
Hmm.
doing the small simple thing doesn't feel like enough, right? Like that's a whole different
Yep.
conversation where, we don't feel like anything is enough.
Ugh.
But it is that small stuff that adds up to the big thing. It's really funny that you use the example of the sneakers because that's actually how I hacked my way out of not moving my body at all. Long story short, I just got really, you know, stationary, after COVID and just not moving my body and feeling really sluggish. And I developed all these like PCOS and my thyroid was all
Mm.
wonky and my body was just tired. And I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna get healthy again, I have to be willing to move. And what is the easiest thing that I can do is walk. And every day I would battle myself. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? It's raining. It's cold. It's too hot. It's too cold, right? Like you start rationalizing with yourself. So every day I just started putting on my sneakers. And that was so small, but I walked every single day.
Hmm.
I was able to do that because I'm like, well, I already have my shoes on, so I might as well walk. I know it's raining, but I'll get an umbrella. Well, I already have my shoes on. I know it's a little chilly. I'll put on a sweatshirt. It's just that very small piece of momentum that
Yeah.
it helps you to build it. And now I've graduated from walking around the neighborhood and I am at a gym and
Love it.
my body is stronger because of it. And I'm starting to regain my health in so many different ways. And so I just wanted to share that story because you don't just go from 0 to 100. You have to be willing to take those small steps and the confidence follows. I mean,
It really
it
does.
comes hand in hand with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the listeners, I really want that to be a takeaway. It's like, yes, your narrative is going to tell you, "Ugh, that putting in the sneakers, I want to go to the big thing. I want to run the marathon." And it's like, but how is that working for you? And ask that compassionately, right? But it's like, are you doing the huge things, right? And it's like that perfectionism, that that need for everything to be lined up actually is really immobilizing as well. So, we can release that, we release the shame, and we just start to just move, right? It's going to pick up. That's the good snowball.
That's the good one. That's one we get to build snowmen out of and have a good time with. Allison, this has been
Yeah.
super refreshing, and I can imagine that your clients just adore working with you because I love your style. So I want to make sure everyone knows how can they get in touch with you. Where can they find you in the world?
Yeah, so I live on the web with everybody else. So I have an Instagram handle. It is at a note from your therapist. I have a website by the same name, a note from your therapist. I do tons of free stuff on there. I have free guides on quitting drinking, building confidence. I do think that it's important to have messages out there that are totally accessible to everyone. So feel free to check them out. I also have my own podcast called Becoming Unstoppable, very geared towards this type of a conversation. Women who are trying to get out of their own head and into their legacies kind of deal. And you can find that on all the potty places, the Apples, the Spotify's, all the stuffs.
The potty places. I love that. I'll make sure that we link all that goodness in the show notes. And I got to know, what does gutsy mean to you?
Being scared and doing it anyway.
I'm obsessed with having these very raw conversations because it humanizes what so many of us are experiencing. Like Allison said, everyone's got some version of this. And whether it's active and it's present in your life right now, or it's passive and you've worked with it in the past, every single human being has experienced shame on some level. And I love these very simplistic ways that you can start to really take your power back and move through it. If you found today's episode valuable, I would super duper love and appreciate if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. It helps other women like you know that, hey, this is the podcast for me too. Connect with me and come over and say hi. I'm at that Laura Ora across the board on social platforms. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.